In the spirit of the Halloween season and the inherent duality of our second episode here, this month we'll be talking about Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. It's the middle entry from the DS era of Castlevania, recently re-released in the wonderful Dominus collection, and it's a game that still shows off exciting ideas for the genre its series helped create over 2 decades ago. That genre, of course, is the Metroidvania.
What is a
Metroidvania?
A miserable little pile of secrets!
That's honestly not a bad definition. Many might argue how to precisely define what makes a game a Metroidvania, and while I think genre names are more useful as flexible descriptors over concrete labels, it might be helpful for me to share my personal definition. I'd broadly define Metroidvanias as games that interweave character progression with exploration and discovery. While we might play other games to experience a story, or have our character get stronger, or actually get better at the game ourselves, I find the central motivation for all Metroidvanias, for me, is to see more of the place. When I defeat a boss in one of these games, the prize I'm most excited about is the prospect of seeing another part of the world. But that's just my definition. Portrait of Ruin, and all of the DS Castlevanias for that matter, feel like the beginning of 3 different paths the series could have gone down, and 3 different blueprints for modern day developers to run with. While Portrait of Ruin is obviously my favorite, I can't confidently say if it's the best of the series, or even the best of these 3 games. Each entry of what I'll call the Dominus trio has extremely different goals. Dawn of Sorrow, a direct sequel to the beloved Aria of Sorrow, explores a potential future where Soma Cruz is the face of the series, and the defining mechanic is the tactical soul. This is Soma's ability to absorb enemies' souls to gain their powers. The collectathon nature of Tactical Soul almost feels a bit like catching Pokemon, but you're only getting moves and you are your entire team. And your rival is Dracula. Order of Eclessia proves that Simon's Quest has ideas worth revisiting. Both games take the series formula and apply it to what is essentially an open-world RPG. Shinoa can absorb glyphs from enemies and combine them to create unique special moves that are often the key to progression. If Dawn of Sorrow is all about discovery, Order of Eclessia is about experimentation. And finally, there's Portrait of Ruin, which I find to be the perfect middle ground between iteration and experimentation. While the game borrows heavily from previous entries to build its skeleton, it has a creative spin on many of the traditional elements of the series, the most notable being the central pitch of the game, the dual protagonists.
Jonathan!
Charlotte!
Jonathan, notably not a Belmont, plays a lot like a member of the Belmont family in that he has all the powers and abilities you'd expect from a Castlevania hero, even if he's lacking in experience. Charlotte is a sorceress and therefore relies on magical powers and her cool books that open up into blades or Don Quixote. It's a somewhat risky move to have a game with 2 controllable characters, but it's also a very special thing when it works. In Portrait of Ruin, you can instantly switch between Jonathan and Charlotte by pushing a button. You can also summon the other to stick with you and help you in battle if you'd rather not go it alone. You can tell your friend to stay put or help you with an action. You can briefly summon them just for a single attack. They can also do these big dramatic moves together, and I absolutely love them. This game rules. This co-op system so easily could have been a complete mess, but it's so simple and it works perfectly, and it makes the game a joy to play. I also really like Jonathan and Charlotte. I won't pretend this game has especially good writing or that we even get to know Johnny or Char very well, but I think they're really charming. At least conceptually, I appreciate the idea that both of them are nobodies in this world. Most Castlevania games are about a Belmont fighting Dracula, and I think it's fun that Portrait of Ruin stars the Belmont's powerless third cousin and his cool witch friend. Even Dracula is absent for a more obscure villain. Until the final boss fight. While big shots like Samus and Alucard begin their games losing all of their powers only to build themselves back up, Jonathan and Charlotte have nothing to lose at the start of their journey. The game is all about them getting stronger and more confident, earning their spotlight despite the tertiary roles their status demands. In addition to the central duo, Portrait of Ruin is full of ideas that each could have been the sole focus of another game. There are paintings throughout the castle that warp you to other self-contained levels, and each one feels like a pitch for a Castlevania game outside of the titular castle. Jonathan can unlock these secret Street Fighter-esque combos, and it makes me imagine a Metroidvania where progression is tied to a deeper understanding of the mechanics over finding the right items. Just playing as Charlotte feels like the start of a whole new series. I'm honestly amazed we haven't seen more Metroidvanias starring a spellcaster. Even just the act of switching between her and Jonathan gives me visions of a Castlevania game with a Final Fantasy-esque party and a variety of distinct RPG classes. Despite their success, much like our heroes, I do feel that the DS era of Castlevania is slightly underappreciated. And zooming out a bit, I also sometimes hear the sentiment that Castlevania gets too much credit for being half of the genre name. And I can understand why many feel this way. In terms of raw game design, Super Metroid still makes up most of what we expect from the genre. I'd still argue that the Vania deserves its place though. If Metroid is a lesson in game design, Castlevania is an invitation. The best Castlevania games make you wonder what else is possible in the genre, may even inspire you to make a game of your own. As someone who was at the very beginning of their game design journey, Portrait of Ruin really speaks to me, both with its cool ideas, but also with the imposter syndrome of its lead characters. Playing this again was really comforting. As Jonathan and Charlotte figured themselves out in the story of the game, I learned what it is I look for in this genre, what I want to see from it as it grows, and if I ever had the opportunity, what I would try to add to it. It's exciting to me that no one has exactly the same definition of Metroidvania. That lack of consensus allows the genre to grow, and getting to experience someone else's subjective definition broadens our own. The fact that this 20-year-old game gets me curious about the future is telling of the genre's lasting appeal. Like all good art, it's timeless. Hey friends, thank you so much for watching this. I am really happy in your timeline it currently exists. I'm recording this right as I'm about to start working on the artwork for the thumbnail, so it's not fully done for me, but I'm glad it is for you, and I hope you enjoyed it. As an ongoing reward for everyone who sticks around, I'm going to reveal next month's video, which is going to be all about the first Strand game, Yoshi's Island. See you next month.